Greetings and välkommen! I'm Captain of Sky, and today I hope to make your day refreshingly Swedish. Now, we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to cook. Now, I feel a little bit weird because the dish I'm cooking for you was taught to me by a Swede in Sweden, but he says it's not actually Swedish, but it's fantastic. It is really, really tasty, and I hope that you will enjoy it too. So let's get started by, first of all, looking at the ingredients that we need for the entire dish. So let's take a look at what we need. The main part of this dish is going to be chicken. So we're going to need chicken breast fillet or chicken fillet, whatever you prefer to call it. These are 4 of them that I just got at the regular supermarket. This is not a brand name or anything, just get regular chicken fillet. We also need some prosciutto. It doesn't particularly matter what kind, just get something. You're going to need about maybe 2 slices per breast. And then we have a red onion here, and we have green beans for the side dish. The Jarlsberg cheese, you can use whatever cheese you want, and you'll see what we're going to do with it. It needs to be a block of cheese, not just like some slices. And then we're going to need bacon. And then some mushrooms. Now you can also add chanterelles, and to my embarrassment, I didn't find any at the grocery store, so I don't have any today, but I wanted to really do this cooking program today because I haven't eaten dinner yet, so let's go. And before I forget, a couple more ingredients that we need for our whole thing. We need some butter, olive oil, cream, and this is like your standard whipping cream. It's liquidy. That's for the sauce. And then this is like frying butter. I know that's not usually available like in the United States, but maybe you have it in your country, wherever you are. I have put some butter and olive oil into the pan. Just mix it up a little bit because I feel like it has a better taste when you add both. Now I am using an induction stove. It doesn't matter what kind of stove you use. Just make sure you can get a good enough frying temperature and it will all be fine. Now we're going to chop the things that we need to chop. I have gone ahead and washed all the mushrooms, and they are kind of drying in this colander here. So I'm going to, first of all, put the mushrooms to the side because the onion is what we want to chop first. The onions usually need to cook for a little bit longer. So we're going to take the ends off the onion here. And then you can peel off some of this. You can even use a smaller knife if the bigger one is too inconvenient. But this onion is a little one, and it's coming apart kind of easily. I think it's looking pretty good here. All right, very nice. So let's cut it in half here, and then just chop it into slices. And try to keep your slices fairly consistent. Let's see, come on. Don't go all over the place, please. There we go. Okay. All right, there we go. There's part of the onion. Don't want to waste any. Okay, and then here's some other bits and pieces we'll just put to the side. And those go into the food recycling. Or if you have a compost bin, you can put them in there as well. In Sweden, we have recycling for several major, well, all kinds of areas of everything, really. But one is separate for food versus plastic and paper and stuff like that. And it goes to fuel our buses, happily enough. Now, these things can be broken apart, but we can also do that in the pan. So the pan is already starting to get nice and warm, and we're just going to put all of these kind of onions in here. And you can use whatever, if you like a spoon better or a spatula or whatever you want. I kind of tend to try to break up the onions a little bit just so that they fry a little bit better and they get a little bit more heat around each layer. Okay, there we go. That's good enough for now. And those are going to fry while we are taking care of the mushrooms. All right, and now we're going to start on the mushrooms. Now, I'm not going to cut all of these on camera. I'm sure you are aware of the benefits of editing and, YouTube magic, all of that kind of thing. I would cut them something like this. It depends on how big the mushrooms are, but you kind of want to have them in sort of like, even slices. I know my mom always liked to eat the stems separately, so I'm just kind of doing that for her. But you can also just cut them like this if you want to. It really doesn't matter. This kind of dish, you can add pretty much anything you want. It's one of those dishes that is free for kind of any kind of spicing or whatever. So I'm going to finish cutting up the mushrooms and then we'll add them to the pan. Now, when I cook with Matthias, we're pretty relaxed. So what I've done here is I have cut up all of the mushrooms and then just put them in the colander back. I think I need to raise the temperature here just a little bit to 7. It goes up to 9, so you can kind of gauge how, how much that might be on your stove. I kind of wanted these to, I don't know, cook a little bit more, but I think it's fine. But when you're slicing the mushrooms, you don't even have to put them into another bowl. You can just chuck them in as they are. Now, the benefit of putting them into another bowl is that they all cook at the same time. So if you're worried that you're going to have, like if you're going to take a really long time and some of the mushrooms are going to be really done and some of them are going to be a little bit more raw, then you might consider putting them in another bowl. But since we're having a cooking show on YouTube, might as well just do it properly, and I want to show you the best way of doing things. Now, we're not actually going to spice these very much, but we're going to try a couple of different things. One of them is easy stuff like salt and pepper. All right, so let's put the salt in. There we go. A little bit of salt, not too much, and then pepper. Now, I always like to use fresh ground pepper, and because for the longest part of my life, when I was young and a kid, and my parents never used fresh pepper. It was always pre-ground, just coming in a little bottle, and it's like, meh. But when you have fresh pepper, oh my goodness, the difference is amazing. Now, the other ingredient that I was recently introduced to is this harissa. This is a spice blend. I believe it's Lebanese. Anyway, I had bought it in the United States before I left. And then I told Mathias, he's like, oh yeah, what's this? And I'm like, oh, what's this? I just bought it. I have never tried it. He's like, well, why did you buy it? I said, well, because I like to try new things. I like to experiment and figure things out. So he put it in and it tasted absolutely amazing. Like I said, I'd never tried it before, but this was going to be really, really nice. Okay, so we're going to let this cook. What I would do is stir it every now and again. You can put a lid on, but I would suggest maybe not, because the mushrooms and the onions are both having a lot of water in them. And as they fry, they release some of that water. Now, we kind of want to cook a little bit of that out because we're going to be adding cream later, and we don't want to like dilute the taste. All right, so there we go. We can leave that for a while and let that cook. Now, the next thing I want to do is set up the green beans for cooking. So these are raw green beans. You can just use frozen green beans. I don't recommend canned because I feel like anytime you have like canned green beans, they just are mushy already, and I don't like mushy beans. I like when the beans are a little bit crunchy. They taste so much better to me. Now what I'm doing is cutting off the ends. Now these ends are fairly fine. I think they're okay. A lot of these beans are already cut enough. These are small enough. I know Mathias loves to have the long green beans. He says, oh, they look better. And I'm like, well, then I have to cut them on the plate. So I'm kind of like, why not have the chef cut them en masse so I don't have to do that on the plate? Now, most of these look pretty good. What you really want to watch for is, I mean, you can actually just shove these in as they are, but I don't like when they have these long stems attached because they're not great for eating, we'll just say. They don't taste really good. So I always just cut all the ends off the green beans, and then I think they look a little bit nicer. Though these funny little tails, these little sort of fantasy tails are kind of pretty. I think those are kind of pretty. But yeah, just slice the green beans to whatever length you want. If you want them to look pretty, like I said, just put the whole thing in. Also watch for bits that are not doing well. Maybe they sat a little bit too long, and you can cut off those any kind of bits that are brown or whatever. Those need to be trimmed off and put into recycling. And then what I'm going to do is, this is way too many green beans for one meal. But what I'm doing is I'm making them for later land. What I usually do is batch cook. I cook in a batch and then I save it for the rest of the week or whatever. And green beans are awesome with everything. I keep a tin of cooked green beans, or not a tin, but like a Tupperware of green beans in the fridge, and I warm them up with anything. If I have a hot dog or a sausage, or I don't know, anything else. You can eat almost anything with green beans. It's pretty tasty, and so I enjoy doing that with those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish preparing all of these. I'm not going to make you watch me chopping all of this stuff. And then I'm going to get to the business end of these green beans in a second. So now we put our attention to the pot in the back. Now I filled it with a little bit of water. Normally what you can do is just put your beans in the pot and then fill it after. All right, so there we go. We have enough water in there. You can see they're all floating around quite nicely. And you can put in some salt in the water. And the reason for the salt is just to help it boil faster. It's not really to season these beans. We're going to be doing something a little bit different with those beans afterwards. So these are the mushrooms. Now it looks like they're getting a little bit dry. They don't have as much water as I thought. So they don't burn. We're going to want to put a little bit more olive oil in here, or butter, or both, whatever you prefer. So let's put in a little bit of oil. And that's going to help them not burn. Here we go. Shake this up a bit. And then get a little bit of butter in here. Again, this is cooking butter. You can use whatever kind of butter you have, like butter in a block. Make sure, though, that it's not margarine, because margarine does very bad things when exposed to high heat, like cooking. Make sure you use something that's safe for cooking, that doesn't raise your cholesterol like crazy. So there we go. We have the mushrooms are cooking quite nicely. This is actually almost ready. We're kind of to the point where, you know, the onions have gotten a bit slimy, the mushrooms have gotten slimy. Perfect for a sauce. Now, I suppose I wasn't thinking quite right when I was cutting these mushrooms. They could be cut a lot smaller. It depends how you like your sauce. But I kind of like generous pieces like this, so the size for me, it doesn't bother me, it works for me, it's pretty good. So what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm just going to turn these off. I think they're pretty well good to go. So we'll turn that off. There we go. And we're going to let those beans cook, and we are going to start the main dish of our project. All right, so I've got the Jarlsberg cheese here, and it is in a block. You can use any kind of cheese you want. Maybe you want it spicy, maybe you want it mild. I'm going to just cut this cheese into something like a 1/2 centimeter wide, okay? And it depends on how big your cheese is. You might, oh wow, that one has a hole in it, how nice. You might want to use 1 piece of cheese for each chicken breast, or maybe a 1/2 a cheese. I think I'm going to use a 1/2 because these are very big pieces of cheese. And from my previous experience of making this the other day, the blocks of cheese were a little too big to fit into each chicken breast. Because what we're going to be doing is making pockets inside the chicken breast to fit this cheese in. So there we go. We're going to cut this one as well. All right, so we have 4 blocks of cheese, very beautiful, kind of with little holes in it. And then we are going to get the prosciutto out. But it doesn't matter because we're probably going to use all of this. So I'm just going to open it up the best way I know how, with force. Anyway, we can just open it up here like this, because we're probably not going to reuse this packaging at all, as in we're going to use all of it today. Now, each of these pieces, I think we have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9. Anyway, when I made this the other day with Mathias, he was like, oh, you know, that's a lot of prosciutto, because I put 4 slices on each cheese. So you don't want quite that many. But what you're going to do is take the prosciutto and kind of wrap it around these cheese pieces. And he says ideally the amount you want is 2 pieces. And these usually are wrapped within kind of these leaves of wax paper. It's just paper. There we go. Okay. And then the same thing applies to the next one. I shouldn't have put that wax paper on here. I should have just put it to the side. Okay. So that is 1 piece. And we're going to put that to the finished side. Now, as you can see, those beans are boiling pretty well here. They just started boiling. So what I'm going to do, and this is what I almost always do, is I just get my kitchen chicken timer. See how that works. And then I always put it for something like 5 minutes. I don't know if you can see that 5 minutes there. It's kind of dark here. But yeah, chicken timer will remind me when the beans are done. Usually 5 minutes is enough to get them to a state of crispiness without killing them. When I was a kid, my mom always killed all the vegetables, and I just don't like it. It doesn't keep a lot of the nutrients within them, and so it's kind of bad for the healthiness of it, and it just doesn't taste good. Okay, so the timer just rang on the beans, so I am right over at the stove, and I'm going to bring them over to the kitchen sink where I can just pour them into the colander here. This is an easy way to evacuate the water without the lid. Now, normally my parents never use the colander. They was like, well, oh, it's so much trouble to get it clean. And I'm like, you just got to rinse it out. It's not a big deal. So now I always use a colander because otherwise you hold the lid and it's just like this struggle, and sometimes stuff ends up in the drain and it's not great. So you just get the water out, you pour the beans back in, and then you take it back over to the stove. Now what I do from here is two things. I'm going to add butter. Now this is just regular butter. This is butter obviously in Swedish, but this is like just a block of butter that would be your regular butter. You can use salted or unsalted depending on your dietary needs and proclivities. So we're just going to put some pieces of butter in here. We want to, this is, now note, this is a lot of beans, okay? This is more than one serving's worth for several people. This is probably a few. So I'm going to put a bit of butter in there. And what the butter does here for us is give us some flavor, and it also lets us sort of melt this stuff. This is granulated garlic. It's not garlic powder. It's a little bit more coarse than that. And I really like this stuff because it adds a lot of garlic flavor here, but it's dried. So the butter is going to let it expand those little molecules, not molecules, but the little granules, literally the granules. We can actually put it here so we can see it a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and turn on this thing. Hello? Stove forgot I was here. Okay, it's fine. No worries. But yeah, we're just going to go ahead and melt some of this butter. And the important thing is you need to mix it quite a lot. And now I'm looking at it, and I don't think we have enough garlic for this quantity of beans, so I might add just a little bit more. But like I said, the most important part here is to melt the butter and get those grains of garlic immersed in the butter. So what they do is they swell up with the butter and they release their flavor, and that's the most important part. Now with these beans, they are done. We do not need salt or pepper. They taste absolutely magical just with a little bit of butter and a little bit of garlic on them. Now you can use fresh garlic if you want, but I tend to go the easy way when I cook with stuff because I am really busy in my daily life. So this is really fast and easy. And like I said, you can eat these green beans with anything. They're really great. Just keep them in a Tupperware in the fridge. They last a very long time and they're very tasty. We're going to keep the lid on just to keep them warm while the rest of our dinner is cooking. So now we're going to actually get to the preparation of the main meal, or part of the preparation. So we have the chicken breast fillet. As you can see, it's in this plastic package, and there's a lot of watery stuff in here. So I always open it in the sink because I don't want this sort of meat water to get all over the kitchen. It's wise to open it in the sink, just drain it out. And that will also allow you to kind of rinse off the breasts and just get, you know, any kind of residue off of them, whatever they might be. I'm really, you know, not afraid of stuff in Sweden, but it depends where you live. It might be a little bit iffy in other places. So as I'm washing them, I'm taking them and I'm putting them off to the side on the cutting board and for the next phase of the project here. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some butter and oil in this pan. Now this is the same pan we used for the mushrooms. Now you can actually fry the chicken first and then do the mushrooms afterwards. You kind of want to mingle those flavors anyway. So we're just going to put more butter because as you see there's very little grease in this pan and we want those chicken breasts to fry without burning. So let's also put a little bit of oil in here. We like this for the flavor. Yay. All right, and now we have our chicken breast preparation. As you see, we have the prosciutto cheese on a little plate over here, and then the chicken breast over here. So what we want to do with this chicken breast, and we can kind of like put some to the side. I probably should have gotten a little bit bigger cutting board, but it doesn't matter. So we're going to get the chicken breast, and you kind of want to see, is there any fat on it, or do you want to trim it off? This stuff, I'm not a big fan of these veins and stuff, so I usually trim those. So there we can put that off to the side and not use that. But if there's any fat, you kind of want to trim that. And then you kind of look at the breast and see the best place where you would like to make a pocket. Now, this thick part is where you're going to have the most room for a pocket. And if you look at your cheese pieces, you can see how it might fit inside here, okay? So what we're going to do is just go in here, be very careful as you plunge the knife in. Be very, very, very careful, please. You can easily cut yourself, especially if you're using a dull knife. Dull knives are the worst for cutting. But you want to have a pocket. You can even kind of open it up a little bit inside here like this. Just carefully, surgically do this. And then you get your piece of cheese and you put it in. Now, it doesn't really have to fit totally, but you can see this fits really, really nicely. Now, I've already opened a packet of bacon here. And what you do with this is also, I need to tell you, I need to turn on the stove real quick and get that heated up. And then we're going to take this bacon. Now, what matters with the bacon is not the overall size. And you're going to want bacon strips, not chopped. So here we go. We're going to take a strip and we're going to start wrapping this piece of chicken with the bacon. This is going to be like a bandage for this bacon, for this chicken. We're going to heal the chicken with bacon. It's going to be fine. Now, each of these pieces of chicken can take 1 or 2 pieces of bacon, depending, well, no, 2 to 3, I should say. And you want to kind of overlap it, as you see, like this, so that we can get it all the way around. We probably want a 3rd piece here because it doesn't quite cover the end of this. So let's grab a 3rd piece. That is why I bought 2 packets of bacon for this project. All right, there we go. And we're going to get this piece of bacon on here. It's a little bit, maybe even too long. So we can save this last piece for another one. I'm kind of actually running out of bacon, so maybe it's not enough after all. So there we are. We have our chicken breast. And then what we want to do is we're going to put it in the pan. All right, so here's our frying pan. I am just going to put it right in here so it starts frying like crazy. And while that's happening, I'm going to prepare more chicken breasts so that can join them in that pan. Now, the idea here with these pieces of chicken is that you want to have the pan hot enough that it sears the bacon and the chicken. Now, searing is a term that we use for something like steaks usually. And what it does is when you get the outside of the meat to kind of a warmed up, crusty state, it stops losing moisture. And that's a really great way to make a steak, is to sear it in a very hot pan so the outside kind of crusts up and it sort of saves all the moisture on the inside. Now let's check these guys. Are they done? Oh, wow, they are pretty good on that side. Look at that. Now this one might need a little bit more time because it took me a little bit to prepare it, but that's okay. We're going to get it. But we want to kind of smush them into the pan. All right, these are looking really, really good. Let's see, is this one done on that side? Yeah, maybe. I think it's maybe done. All right, so we're going to go ahead and fry it on this side. And don't worry, as I'm putting my spatula so close, there's actually no heat coming from the bottom of the pan. Because this is induction, what these little things do is they are magnets. And the magnetic resonance changes or heats up the pan. So this surface, there's no fire, it's not electric with heat. So even if this is on, I don't have to, I can put my hand on it and it won't hurt me because it reacts to the metal in the pan and not to the air, and it's not like an electric stove. So don't worry about my spatula being so close, but I urge you to keep your spatula at the necessary distance away so you don't mess it up or get the plastic burnt or whatever. Just be safe when you're cooking, please, and get that together. So what we want to do is sear all the sides, and what that means is you're going to have to baby this maybe a little bit by like turning it on its side. I'm just showing you an example. I still want to fry the bottom of this, but you're also going to want to sear the sides of this thing, okay? So we're going to do that, and once that is done, I'm going to do both sides of each of them, and then we're going to move to the next step. Okay, so I'm kind of frying the sides of these, as you see. Now, one thing I'm going to note is I have been making 4 of these, but I really don't think I think that would serve 4 people, honestly. Because of the cheese and the prosciutto inside, they are very, very filling. And we also have those green beans on the side as well to serve our audience. When Matthias and I cooked this, we cooked 1 chicken breast apiece, and then He was like, oh yeah, do you have any other chicken? I said, yeah, I got these chicken tenders. So what I did with the rest of the bacon at the time was I just had the chicken tenders and I wrapped them in bacon. You know, they're too small to have the prosciutto inside and all that kind of stuff. So I just wrapped them, and we did not eat a single chicken tender because these were so filling and just so amazing. They were really, really tasty. All right, so we're gonna, I think we're pretty good on these guys right now. So I'm gonna take them out, and you can use tongs or whatever you feel most comfortable with to get them out of this pan. And I'm gonna put them in a baking pan, okay? Because I'm very sure that the inside of the chicken isn't cooked yet. So we need to finish them by baking them in the oven, because frying is just gonna kind of make the outside really dry, and it's gonna be really hard to cook the inside. I should have used tongs there. That would have been a better choice, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. So now we have the other chicken breasts that I have been preparing off camera. So there we go. We're gonna put those in, covered in bacon, same exact way. There we go, and let those cook. All right, so now that these are ready, let's just go ahead and grab them and put them into the baking pan. There we go. This one is already starting to let go of its bacon a little bit, but maybe we can kind of tease it back on here or not. It doesn't really matter. It's just for funsies, as we all know. There we go. Let's go ahead and put the other one in there as well. Now, do not throw away all this good stuff, because this is going to be part of the sauce, and we're going to put those mushrooms back in there and start to make the sauce. But while I have been cooking these chicken breasts in the pan, I have also been warming up the oven to 180 degrees Celsius. That's about 360 degrees Fahrenheit if you work in Fahrenheit. And what we're going to do is just slip these things into the oven. Okay, so oven. Now note that I do have the convection setting where it does move the air around the oven really well. So we're just going to put these in there for a few minutes, and I'll tell you how long right when we get back to it. Now, one quick tip for you is that I keep my dishwasher open, and I keep putting stuff in there as I use them so that I can just clean up really quickly. Otherwise, the kitchen stuff would just totally overwhelm me. Right now, I have an absolutely empty sink. I have been putting all the plastic in the plastic recycling, but there are no dirty dishes to wash except maybe the tongs that we just used and the baking pan and the frying pan that we're still going to use for our sauce. Okay, now that we have all of this lovely the chicken flavoring in here and everything, we're going to start our sauce. Now remember, these are the mushrooms and onions that we cooked a little earlier. So we're going to put those into the pan. Okay. I'm using a spoon that is a little bit scoopy. Let's put this up to like 7. That's my favorite temperature to cook. Now this is not your typical very shallow spoon, because I want to use this to spoon out the gravy afterwards. So I like to just have one spoon for things. Of course, you can do it however you want. It's just fine. We're going to let this heat up just a bit and kind of mix around the mushrooms and the onions to get all those lovely chicken flavors to make this a little bit richer. It's kind of the equivalent of having chicken stock in a recipe, but we made our own chicken stock by frying the chicken and the bacon in here. So there's going to be some bacon grease kind of melding around in here. So this is going to be a super, super tasty combination. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put in our cream. So yeah, this is going to be a thing where we're going to pour in some cream. Let's see if we can get this going. They have these new plastic caps that don't come off anymore, so it's a little bit iffy. But here we go, put in some cream. Let's see how that works. Let's see, how's that going? All right, so it's very creamy and very loose. Put a little bit more, so we have a little bit more volume in here. Now this is cream. This is not milk. Really important. It makes it really rich and tasty to eat. Now please note that I don't eat this way every day. I usually eat one of these kinds of rich meals maybe once a week. But it is worth having once a week because it's so very tasty. Now this is the kind of meal that, I mean, I would probably have one meal like this and that's my entire meal for the day. So, you know, it's very, very rich, and with the green beans and stuff, it's fantastic. Now, you can also add your own carbs to this. We didn't have any last time we had this. Now, what this is cornstarch, okay? Now, the old school method, which my mom taught me, was You mix the cornstarch in a cold water and, let it, dilute it in cold water, and then you add it. But you really don't have to do that. If you just sprinkle a tiny bit on top, you can see already how the sauce is getting much thicker already. So I think I'm going to add some more cream to this. But yeah, when I had this last time with Mathias, when we cooked together, we didn't have any carbs at all with the meal. What I might suggest, if you do want some, maybe some potatoes on the side. What I would do is probably just cook young potatoes, or those, the delicate ones with the fine skin on the outside, the soft skin. Cook those in a pot and either put butter or dill on them, or both. That would be nice. It's a little bit thick still. So you're going to add more cream. Now this is the volume of cream you're going to get, right? So remember, we have 4 chicken breasts here. So think of this in terms of dividing it in 4. How much each person's going to get? Do they like a lot of sauce, a little sauce? Are you going to also put this on your green beans? You might want to add more cream if that's the case, just to have a little bit more volume to this sauce. You can also taste this and make sure that it is to your taste. And if it isn't salty enough, like if we've diluted it too much with the cream, then you might want to add a little bit more salt and pepper as you like to taste. All right, this is looking really good. That cornstarch is really working a long way here. I think we're kind of actually good with this. And because you want to bring it to the boil, and it's been boiling this entire time, I think we're actually done with this sauce. And what you want to do from this point on is you do want to cover this sauce so it doesn't get a hard crust on the outside. So I'm going to get, now this is a very old pan lid, please forgive me. But yeah, we're going to cover this sauce with an old pan lid. You can use a new one if you like, so that it doesn't get this kind of hard crust over it. And that's kind of weird. It's not great. So what we're waiting for now is just for the chicken to finish, and then we'll be able to eat our meal. All right, our chicken has been kind of simmering in the pan there for about 15 or 16 minutes. So let's take it out and see how it has cooked. Now with chicken, you always want to make sure it's cooked through and through. This is not steak. Now steak you can have when it's fairly, even if it's raw. You can have a raw steak, it's called rare. But we want to make sure that these pieces of chicken are absolutely cooked. Otherwise, there is a risk of getting something like salmonella, and you want to just avoid that. But you can easily avoid it just by making sure it's completely cooked. So what we're going to do is take our knife and go right through the middle of this thing. Now, usually I'll do this on my own piece so that my guests' pieces are whole and nice. And if we look inside this piece of chicken, it is absolutely cooked. Now, I did put this for 16 minutes, but you need to make sure, especially if you're using thicker breasts and more thickness of meat, that it is getting cooked. So you always want to check it out at the end of your cooking period. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this on a plate. Okay, so now that we have our chicken on the plate, I'm going to go ahead and add the green beans. Now these guys should still be warm, but you can always warm them up if they got a little bit cold. So let's add some carbs not carbs, add the beans on the side here. I absolutely love green beans. They're so healthy and very tasty, and very, very nice with the butter and the garlic as well. So let's add those. And now what you can do is we do have a lot of sauce in this pan with the chicken. And if you kind of move the chickens over, you can get some of these juices and put them into the sauce that we've made earlier. And that's very nice. And you can kind of, do this with a spoon a little bit better than I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and warm this up a little bit and get it nice and a little bit looser. And then we can put that on top of our wonderful plate of food here. Now, when you make this multiple times, obviously you're going to get more practiced at doing things. I've only made this once with another person in the kitchen. So as I was preparing the chicken and all the prosciutto and the bacon, Mathias was working on the green beans and the mushrooms and stuff. And so I didn't really have a good sense of timing onto where to get things going. Now, there are easy ways to fix this, like the beans can be sat in the pot of hot water. You don't have to pour it out directly. You can leave them in the pot of hot water, or you can start warming it up a little bit before you take the chicken out. Now, as I was cooking this, I forgot how long we had the chicken in the oven. And of course, that's going to vary depending on, like I said, how thick your chicken is and all of that kind of stuff. So you need to just kind of watch it and play it by ear. Now remember, I did skip the chanterelles because I couldn't find them at the market last time. But you can put in anything you want. If you want more onions, if you want spring onions, or if you want mushrooms or some other kind of vegetables in this, maybe you want peppers or other spices and things like that, put that in as well. This is a recipe where it's up to your imagination, up to what you enjoy. So make it the way you want it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And then we're going to get this sauce onto our plate here. So there we go. Remember, this sauce is going to have to last for 4 different pieces of chicken. So I'm going to kind of conserve it a little bit here. But there we are. Very nice. And you have all these beautiful, beautiful chunky mushrooms. And I can't tell you the aroma. It smells so nice and savory. And it's absolutely gorgeous. So let's get a little close-up on this. There we go. And then we're going to try it. Let's go and eat. Okay, so we have the food right on the table in front of me. It's kind of hard to get camera angles of the food and me. So I'm just going to show you me so you can see my expressions while I'm eating this food, because you have seen it already. It is absolutely gorgeous. The cheese is kind of spilling out of the chicken and the bacon is really nice and crispy. And the mushrooms are just kind of like overflowing the side with the sauce. It's really, really nice. So let's try some of these green beans first. Sometimes I don't always like try the main meal first. I just want to try the green beans. So here we have a beautiful, like a little sheaf of green beans and some mushrooms on here with the sauce. Oh my God. I think I've created heaven. Oh my God, this is so good. You can really taste the richness of the butter. And there is a lot of butter in this recipe. This is not a recipe where you're going to lose weight. But like I said, I don't eat this way every day. I have this to renew my sense of, I don't know, excitement in the world and tastes of luxurious food that we can make ourselves. And it didn't even take that long. So here's another little fork of green beans. 5 minutes on the beans. So the beans, I started the 5-minute timer when they started to boil. That was my timing on those beans. And it's absolutely perfect. They're a little bit crispy and very plump, and they kind of crunch in your mouth, but they're not like super hard either. So they're really nice. Now I'm going to slice a piece of this chicken. Just going to do that. I'm kind of getting a little bit of that outside edge where we have the bacon and we have the cheese. So here we see this piece. Oh my goodness. Wow. You just want to cry. It's so good. Like, as I'm like biting into it and chewing and eating, you can taste the different layers. You can taste the chicken, which is super, super tender, because remember, we seared it to sear in the juices into the chicken so they don't all like get dry and horrible. So it's really plump and very, very juicy. The first flavor is that chicken. And then you get a little bit of the bacon flavor, and then you can taste the prosciutto, and then finally the cheese in the center. And it is just an absolutely glorious, it's like a journey for your mouth. It's fantastic. All right, let's have a little bit more of this, a little bit maybe with some more sauce, because I don't think I got much sauce on that last piece that I had. Okay. All right, let's try this. Okay, here's lots of sauce on this piece here. Wow. Just wow. Thank you, Mathias, for teaching me how to make this. Oh my God, this is good. So it's so funny because when we ate dinner the other day, we cooked together. That's a thing we love to do together. I don't know if he loves it as much as I do, because I learn a lot and I really appreciate him cooking with me. But it's fun because we try different things, and he always encourages me to like experiment. And I asked, well, what's the recipe? How much of this do I? No. Just look in your fridge and put whatever you got in your fridge. That's the way he cooks. And it ends up being these amazing recipes, which I write down because I don't have a lot of experience cooking. Like when I was taught to cook by my mom, we cooked the same things all the same time. I know how to cook fajitas and scrambled eggs and a couple of other things and tacos, but like nothing with sauce, nothing that's fancy like this. And so when he started teaching me, I started writing those recipes down so that I could remember them and I know the amounts of ingredients and other things, and so that I could have proper meals finally. It tastes really, really good. And what am I going to do with the rest of food, you might ask? So what I'm going to do is those other chicken breasts are going to be my lunches and dinners for the next few days. Or maybe, maybe not every day, but maybe every other day. Chicken doesn't last that long in the fridge after cooking, so you kind of want to eat it sooner. But I don't have any guests coming over soon, alas, so I have to eat it myself. Have to, in quotation marks. I am going to enjoy the heck out of this. And what I usually do is I put each different thing in a different Tupperware. So the meat's going to go in one Tupperware, the sauce in another, and then the beans in another. And what you can do is just make up a plate later and just put some beans and sauce and thing on it. Now notice that you'll note that the sauce gets a little bit hard in the fridge, like you can cut it with a spoon or a knife. But once you warm it up like in the microwave or a pan, it's just fine. So it works really well. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this wonderful culinary adventure. It's very, very rich food and it's very nice. And I don't know if it's very Swedish, but it's Swedish to me because I learned it in Sweden. And Mathias is my wonderful native Swede. And I'm very grateful for him to teach me how to make this. So thank you, Mathias. And I wish all of you a great cooking adventure. I hope you'll try it. Do let me know if you do try it and what you think about it. I'd love to have a comment from you or a comment on anything else, or if you have a suggestion of what I should make. I know one of the staples of Swedish cuisine is meatballs. We love meatballs on just by themselves or on sandwiches, any kind of thing. So that's on my list to make. But if you have any other ideas of recipes, do let me know. I just bought a couple of Swedish cookbooks at the bookstore the other day, and I want to look through those and find some recipes. So if you know of what you want, I can look those up and get a recipe, or just send me a recipe. I am really looking, you know what I want? If you're a Swede and you love kardemommebullar as much as I do please send me a recipe, because I don't know I don't know what the good recipes are. You can Google it and you get a million recipes, but which are the good ones? I don't know. But I love cardamom buns. They're my favorite kind of bready thing here in Sweden, because in the US, they don't cook with a lot of cardamom at all. At any season. You might have a little bit at Christmas, but it's not really a thing. The US likes to have a lot of cinnamon at Christmas, but here in Sweden, we eat cardamom all the time. And I find that it's a very Scandinavian thing. We had a lot in Norway as well. So yeah, if you have a great recipe for that or any other recipe, or just want to tell me anything, just write in the comments below. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so very much for joining me. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you next time.